The ritual of sin-eating is a solemn and ancient tradition, often practiced as a means of absolving the deceased of their sins. However, this process can and should be applied to the actively dying as well. Preparing for such a ritual involves both spiritual and practical considerations. Firstly, participants must engage in introspection and prayer, aligning themselves with the gravity of the occasion and preparing their hearts and minds to take on the burden of another's sins. This may involve fasting, meditation, or other forms of spiritual preparation to ensure they are in the right state of mind for the ritual. Secondly, logistical preparations are necessary to ensure the ritual proceeds smoothly. This includes gathering the necessary materials, such as bread or other symbolic foods, as well as any ceremonial items or religious/spiritual texts that may be required. Participants may also need to coordinate with clergy or other religious leaders to ensure the proper conduct of the ritual and adherence to any prescribed rituals or prayers. Emotional preparation is immeasurably important for those participating in the ritual of sin-eating. Taking on the sins of another can be a deeply emotional and profound experience, requiring participants to confront their mortality and the weight of human frailty. Participants need to approach the ritual with empathy, compassion, and a willingness to bear the spiritual burden of another's transgressions, offering them forgiveness and peace in their final moments. Selecting the right location for a sin-eating ritual is crucial for creating a sense of reverence and sacredness. Ideally, the space should be quiet, secluded, and imbued with a sense of spiritual significance. Often, this may be within a place of worship, such as a church or temple, where the presence of divine energy can enhance the ritual's efficacy. However, if such a location is not available, a quiet room in a home or other private setting can also suffice, provided it is free from distractions and conducive to contemplation. Once the location is chosen, creating a conducive environment is essential for setting the tone of the ritual. This involves attending to details such as lighting, temperature, and seating arrangements to ensure participants/witnesses are comfortable and able to focus their attention fully. Soft, diffused lighting can help create a sense of intimacy and introspection, while maintaining a moderate temperature ensures physical comfort throughout the proceedings. Additionally, arranging seating in a circular or semicircle formation encourages a sense of unity and inclusivity among participants, fostering a deeper connection to the ritual's purpose. The inclusion of symbolic elements and decorations is central to the sin-eating ritual, as they serve to reinforce its spiritual significance and provide visual cues for participants to engage with on a deeper level. Common symbolic elements may include a table or altar adorned with candles, flowers, and religious icons, representing the presence of divine grace and the transience of life. Additionally, the use of ritualistic objects such as a chalice, ceremonial knife, or crystals can imbue the space with a sense of sacredness and tradition, further enhancing the ritual's potency. Other symbolic decorations may include symbolic foods such as bread, salt, or wine, which are often used to represent the body and blood of Christ in Christian traditions, or offerings of fruit and grain symbolizing abundance and renewal. These items serve not only as physical sustenance but also as metaphors for the spiritual nourishment received through the act of sin-eating. Setting the space for a sin-eating ritual requires careful attention to detail and a reverence for the sacredness of the occasion. By choosing an appropriate location, creating a conducive environment, and incorporating symbolic elements and decorations, participants can create a space that facilitates deep spiritual engagement and allows for the meaningful absolution of sins. The sin-eating ritual is a profound and spiritual ceremony that requires careful preparation and the gathering of specific materials to ensure its efficacy and significance. Here, we outline the essential items for the ritual, optional additions for personalization, and where to source these materials. Bread or symbolic food. A crucial element of the sin-eating ritual is the consumption of bread or other symbolic food, which represents the taking on of the deceased's sins by the sin-eater. This bread can be simple or elaborately prepared, depending on cultural or religious traditions. Candles. Candles are often used to symbolize light and spiritual illumination during the ritual. They create a sacred ambience and provide a focal point for participants to focus their intentions and prayers. Salt. Salt is a traditional symbol of purity and protection in many cultures. It may be sprinkled around the ritual space or incorporated into the symbolic food as a means of purifying and sanctifying the ceremony. Water or wine. Water or wine may be used in the ritual to symbolize purification and renewal. It can be poured into a ceremonial vessel and blessed before being consumed or sprinkled as part of the ritual proceedings. Prayer or religious texts. Depending on the cultural or religious context of the sin-eating ritual, participants may require specific prayers or religious texts to guide them through the ceremony. These texts may be recited aloud or read silently as part of the ritual. Incense. Burning incense can enhance the ritual's ambience and create a sense of sacredness and reverence. Different scents may be chosen based on their symbolic significance or personal preferences. Symbols or talismans. Participants may choose to incorporate symbols or talismans that hold personal significance or represent aspects of the deceased's life or spiritual beliefs. These can be placed on the altar or worn during the ritual as a form of spiritual connection. Photographs or mementos. Including photographs or mementos of the deceased can personalize the ritual and evoke memories of their life and legacy. These items can be displayed on the altar or passed around among participants as a way of honoring and remembering the individual. Music or chants. Music or chants can add oral depth to the ritual and facilitate a deeper sense of connection and resonance among participants. Chants or hymns with spiritual significance may be sung or played during the ceremony to evoke a sense of reverence and unity. Materials for a sin-eating ritual can be sourced from a variety of sources, depending on availability and personal preferences. Essential items such as bread, candles, salt, and water can typically be found at grocery stores or specialty shops catering to religious or ceremonial supplies. Additionally, many online retailers offer a wide range of ritualistic items tailored to specific cultural or religious traditions. Optional additions for personalization, such as incense, symbols, talismans, or music, may be found at specialty stores, spiritual supply shops, or online marketplaces specializing in metaphysical or ceremonial goods. Participants are encouraged to explore local resources and trusted suppliers to find materials that resonate with their spiritual beliefs and intentions for the ritual. Gathering the necessary materials for a sin-eating ritual involves careful consideration of essential items for the ceremony's core elements, as well as optional additions for personalization and spiritual resonance. By sourcing materials from trusted suppliers and incorporating meaningful symbols and gestures, participants can create a sacred and transformative experience that honors the dying/deceased and facilitates the process of spiritual absolution and healing. The sin-eating ritual involves a designated individual, the sin-eater, symbolically absorbing the sins of the dying/deceased. While this ritual holds deep spiritual significance for many communities, it raises several ethical considerations that warrant careful examination. Consent and autonomy. Central to ethical considerations surrounding sin-eating is the issue of consent and autonomy. The dying/deceased individual did not necessarily consent to have their sins transferred to another person through this ritual. This raises questions about the ethical implications of absolving someone of their sins without their explicit consent, challenging notions of individual autonomy and free will. Emotional and psychological impact. Participating in the sin-eating ritual can have profound emotional and psychological effects on the sin-eater. Taking on the sins of another involves bearing a heavy spiritual/psychic burden and confronting the darker aspects of human nature. This can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, and emotional distress for the sin-eater, raising ethical concerns about subjecting individuals to such turmoil in the name of tradition. Power dynamics and exploitation. Sin-eaters often hold a position of spiritual authority within their community, which can lead to power imbalances and potential exploitation. There are ethical considerations regarding the fair and equitable distribution of power within the sin-eating process and the potential for the sin-eater to misuse their position for personal gain or to exert control over others. Cultural sensitivity and respect. The sin-eating ritual is deeply rooted in specific cultural and religious traditions, and its practice should be approached with sensitivity and respect. Ethical considerations arise concerning cultural appropriation and the respectful treatment of practices that may be sacred or meaningful to certain communities. Outsiders should approach the sin-eating process with humility, curiosity, and a willingness to learn from those who practice it within its cultural context. Social justice and equity. The sin-eating ritual may intersect with broader issues of social justice and equity, particularly if certain individuals or groups are disproportionately burdened with the responsibility of sin-eating. Ethical considerations arise concerning the fair distribution of spiritual responsibilities and the recognition of systemic inequalities that may influence who is called upon to perform the ritual. While the ritual holds spiritual significance for many, it is essential to approach it with critical reflection, sensitivity, and a commitment to ethical principles that honor the dignity and autonomy of all involved. In the realm of spiritual and religious practices like the sin-eating ritual, obtaining consent is a complex and nuanced process that intertwines ethical considerations with cultural and traditional beliefs. Here, we delve into the importance of informed consent, and methods for documenting consent, and explore case scenarios to illustrate these concepts. Informed consent is fundamental to ethical practice in any context, including religious rituals such as sin-eating. It upholds individuals' autonomy and respects their right to make decisions about their spiritual beliefs and practices. In the case of sin-eating, obtaining informed consent ensures that participants understand the nature of the ritual, its spiritual implications, and any potential emotional or psychological effects it may have. Without informed consent, the ritual risks infringing upon individuals' autonomy and may lead to feelings of coercion or discomfort. Documenting consent for a sin-eating ritual requires sensitivity to cultural and religious beliefs, as well as adherence to ethical principles. One method for documenting consent is through written agreements or waivers that outline the nature of the ritual, its purpose, and any potential risks or consequences. These documents should be presented clearly and in a language that participants understand, allowing them to make an informed decision about whether to participate or not. Another method for documenting consent is through verbal communication, where participants are provided with detailed information about the ritual and have the opportunity to ask questions and express their consent verbally. In some cases, witnesses or community leaders may be present to attest to the individual's consent, providing an additional layer of accountability and support. Prayers and statements for the rituals. The traditional phrase whispered by sin-eaters in some old practices was often something like, "I give easement and rest now to thee, dear man, or woman, who shall pass on to thy rest and sleep in peace until waked by the Lord." The sin-eater would consume the bread and drink that symbolically absorbed the sins of the deceased, thereby freeing their soul from the burden of sin. This phrase was a way to offer spiritual release and comfort to the departed. In addition to the primary phrase whispered by sin-eaters, some other comments and sayings might accompany the ritual. Some of these included, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, I take upon myself the sins of this soul of my own free will." This invocation reflects the Christian belief system that was often intertwined with the sin-eating practice, invoking the Holy Trinity as the sin-eater assumed the burden of the deceased's sins. "Rest in peace, and may your soul be lightened of all earthly burdens." A more general blessing, this phrase sought to comfort the deceased and ensure their peaceful passage to the afterlife. "Let this bread be thy body, and this drink be thy blood, that cleanses thee of thy sins." Drawing from Christian sacramental language, this phrase emphasized the symbolic nature of the ritual, aligning it with the Eucharist. "As I consume this bread, so do I consume the sins that weigh upon this soul." This phrase reinforced the physical act of eating and drinking as a means of spiritually cleansing the deceased. "May your sins be forgiven, and your soul find its rest." A simple but profound blessing, this phrase focused on forgiveness and peace for the departed. "I eat this in thy stead, that thy soul may be free." This saying explicitly connects the act of eating with the release of the soul from sin, emphasizing the vicarious nature of the ritual. These sayings were often personalized to fit the specific beliefs of the sin-eater and the community they served, blending local traditions with broader religious practices. I take upon myself thy sins, so that thou shalt not walk these roads again, nor return to haunt the living. May thy spirit find peace and rest in the beyond, free from all earthly ties. This phrase acknowledges the belief that unburdening the deceased of their sins prevents their spirit from lingering or returning to the world of the living, ensuring their peaceful transition to the afterlife.